yesterday's seminar, there was a lot of repetitive questions, but we'll start off with where we left. Thank Rajguruji for spending time with us and helping the community. Appreciate it, sir. So one big update from yesterday after our session was that USCIS did give a little bit more clarification on what dates to use. So the first question I'll let Rajguru to talk about the information that came out after our seminar webinar yesterday.
Yeah, so after around 4 o'clock, USCS updated that page that dates for filing 485, then they put that table B, but still some attorneys still doubting it. So whether USCS is going to come up with any different data or whatever, even they are trying to confirm with USCS through ILA. So maybe we will have some more updates on that. But as of now, I believe USCS is going with the filing chart. So I think it's we are good to go on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, just other this typically October last 4 years, if you see, it's always been the not the finalized final action date, but the other date. So seems to be on the same guidelines of October month every year. They are only month in the year so far in the last 4 years. They have been allowing to use the filing date, and everything else is the final action date. So the next thing a lot of people have in common is what happens to their EB2 140 if they downgrade to or downport to EB3? Is the EB2 still valid, or it basically goes away?
Yeah, you know what, if you, based on I-140 policies guidelines, there is nothing on that, whether they are going to revoke the EB2 140 or not. But previously, we successfully used that EB2 later, once we downgraded to EB3. So that means they are not revoking the previous approval unless we are getting a notice stating that that petition was revoked. So in that case, if employer receiving any notice stating that EB2 is revoking, so you have an option again, you can file I-140 under EB2 when that situation comes to use under EB2.
Thank you. The next question that a lot of people have or are confused is regarding the dates, and a lot of people put in these questions in different ways. I'm just going to summarize it. So they have a date which is either couple of months away from the EB2 date right now, or they have a date that's few months away from even the EB3, so they're not sure whether they should just downgrade, have one more 140 ready, just in case dates move, they can quickly apply. So I'll just summarize the question. They're asking, how close of a date should we consider to even downgrade, or basically, so two downgrade scenarios, right? One, EB2 date is still not current, but it's pretty close to current or pretty close to the filing date. And what should we doing? And the second part B of that is, if let's say it is March or April of 2015 or December, downgrade it and have an application ready.
Okay, in this situation, we cannot give an advice on this because we are not sure whether the date's going backwards or not. Maybe only this month it is going to be current. Next month, so again it can go backwards. So we cannot suggest how, if your priority date it is recent, then you can wait, all kind of. So you have to analyze, so you have to see your own situation, your requirement, then you decide it. But only thing we know that this month is current. So if you want to make use of it, definitely you have to do it this month. Otherwise, you can wait until October 15th, then see that next month how it is going. Once they release the bulletin for next month, then you can decide accordingly whether you can wait for one more month to see how many people filing, all those. Maybe we will get some little data. So almost everybody they are trying to downgrade to EB3. So maybe you can wait until for next bulletin. Sometime they will be releasing between 15th and 20th. Then you can decide whether you can wait, how it is moving, all those things. So anyhow, with this all your personal requirement, personal situation, you have to decide on your own.
All right. Thank you, sir. The next question kind of goes across couple of people, and they are on similar grounds. Their current status is based on 140. So either they are in a H1 extension based on I-140, or they have a H4 EID based on a 140, or they have a H1 extension in the next 6 to 12 months, which is going to be based on the I-140. So they're asking if they downgrade, will it affect their existing or planned extension based on the 140, be it EID or H4EID extension or a future extension?
I guess if they have an approved I-140 and they have used it for either for H4 EAD or getting a 6 months extension or whatever, so there is no hurdle for them in extending further by using that I-140, unless those I-140s revoked for fraud and misrepresentation grounds. If it is withdrawn by employer, or USCA is revoking for non-fraud misrepresentation, still you can use it. And another thing, the labor certificate which you are going to use for EB3, the same labor certificate. So still based on that EB3 approval or EB3 pending application, you are eligible for the same benefits like extending or H4 EAD. Still you are having that option to extend it. So I don't see there will be an impact on this.
Okay. Now, few people have some questions on employment, and I know it's really tough to basically comment on which option to pick, because the reason you moved from at the first place from one employer to the other is either you found a better opportunity or you were pushed into a situation where things didn't work out for you. So it's hard for anyone to comment whether to go back to the previous employer or not. But a lot of people keep asking, is that the only option? If the new employer did not start the green card process yet, what are our options? Is our only option to go back to the previous employer? And what if the previous employer doesn't accept us?
If the previous employer not accepting, you have no other way. So you have to request your new employer to file your perm, whatever, as quickly as possible. And you can see that down the line how the dates are moving. But if previous employer agreeing to that, still you have some problems. So we don't know how long before you moved from the employer who were that previous employer. So again, we discussed yesterday about the ability to pay. That's going to be a problem really. And another thing, when you are going to file EB3 and concurrently you are filing 485, in case for ability reason, if your I-140 is getting denied, they will deny your 485 also immediately. Then still, if you are going back to the previous employer, again, they have to do H1B and keep you on status.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so but ability to pay, definitely it's going to be an issue. So you have to make sure their employer has net assets or net income listed in tax return is good enough to support all their petitions.
Yeah, generally thumbnail ability to pay is easier if you are on their payroll because they are already paying you. It's a straightforward this thing. But the next question, how long do we anticipate the whole process of downgrading to take?
It's again depending on the service centers, whether it is Nebraska Service Center or Texas Service Center, number of application filed. Actually, yesterday I was talking to another attorney. They recently filed one downgrade petition from EB2 to EB3 and the premium process. that labor was issued, the labor certificate was issued before COVID, that means in original format. So the USCIS rejected the premium process, stating that we need original certificate to file under premium process. This happened recently, 2-3 weeks back. That means we don't have an option in filing under premium if the labor certificate was issued in original, that blue format. So if it was issued in copy format and if it's not expired yet in the last 3-4 months, you have an option to go for premium process. So the timeline for EB3 downgrade, it may vary from 4 months to, I can say that probably a year. We experienced at least 1.5 years delay in the last couple of years back. So it may take longer because of the number of applications we are going to file.
Thank you. So in the past, typically premium for 140, especially the second 140, they would accept as long as it's going to the same service center because they already have your original copy. So
no, it is not actually because the moving the labor certificate from one I-140 to another I-140 petition, that itself they were unable to complete within 15 days, so that they have not accepted premium process unless after 3-4 months. Normally in my office, what we do, we keep on sending the premium upgrade once in a month. So once the labor certificate transferred to the new file, then they can upgrade it. So maybe after 4th month or 5th month. So at the first attempt, they never accept under premium process.
So just to be clear, so this change is not because of COVID, that has been the previous practice too, right?
That is right. This is the previous practice, but what happened after COVID, Labor Department started issuing electronic approvals. So since we are using electronic approval, let's say you have an labor certificate approved in April 2020, so it is still valid for another 2-3 months. So we can file again, EB3 petitions, whatever, under premium. But that practice also, we are not sure after the expiry date, after the expiry date of the labor certificate, we have to check the checkbox in I-140 that we are requesting USCIS to use the labor certificate from another file. So if we check that checkbox, we don't know how they are going to accept in premium process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a consolidated question from couple of other questions, both from the group and from the list, is what happens when, so someone was on a H1, they either moved to a H4 or to an F1 because they had issues with H1, and now their EB2 date is either eligible for filing 485 or it will be eligible if they downgrade it, if their employer downgrades it. So if the employer is willing to downgrade it, can they still do it being on a H4 dependent visa?
Yes, that we discussed yesterday. To file I-140, there is no requirement that you have to be on H-1B or any employment status, whatever. Any status, whether you are on F1, H4, whatever, you can, employer can still file I-140. The main question is whether you are getting salary from them or not. So maybe on H4 EAD, or if you are in F1, whether you have an OPT or whatever. If you are employing with them, you are going to get pay statements so that it is easy to show the ability to pay. So again, here the question is not your immigration status. Employer can file. The main issue is whether the employer has the ability to pay to support your petition or not.
There's a couple of people with similar questions. Kind of, I'm gonna club a different question also under this category.
Is Hari's voice breaking for anybody
Yes,
else?
asking.
Yeah, Hari, I think
for can
your voice is breaking. You need to check once.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me?
A second, I'm going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So meanwhile, before Hari can connect through audio phone or something, I will ask one more question. What was asked? So somebody, they have done their medicals in 2015. When last time they have done the same thing. can they use the same medical records now?
So you can, that if it's in the sealed envelope, you can just put it, send it. But any of USCIS, when they are adjudicating your 485, they are going to see that whether those medical certificates are current. Otherwise, they are going to send a request for evidence to redo it. So, but anyhow, it is not mandatory to submit Form I-693 right now.
Okay, that was the follow-up question. Suppose if they are not ready with the medical document, still they can go ahead and submit or not?
Right, they can submit it.
Okay, thank you. Hari, are you ready, or should I go with the next question? Yeah, okay.
I'm back.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
All right. So this is a consolidated question, couple of them. They're asking if the I-485 can be applied by themselves, and if they apply by themselves and without the company attorney, what documentation would they need from the company in order to apply for an I-485?
So now, nowadays, that confirmation of employment, that's what USC is looking for. That is the reason they have introduced Form 485J supplement. So the Form J supplement has to be signed by the USC, the employer and the employee both in that 485. But in the Form 485, it's almost like similar to I-140 form. So you need data from I-140 petition and the labor certificate to complete that form. And also, obviously, you need a copy of your I-140 approval notice.
So just to summarize, in case they want to file it by themselves, they should still need to go to their employer, get the signature, get this supporting document like letter and other things, and then they can still do it by themselves. They can pay the fee and everything themselves and still do it.
Correct, they can do it, yes.
Thank you. A couple of things, the same
and
question.
One more thing I want to, since people want to do themselves few cases, they have to be really careful these days. So because the new public benefit rule, it came into picture in the last few months. So the public rule, there are few questions added in Form 485. So whether they received any benefit or not, this is all really confusing questions. And also you have to complete a form called 944, whether it is required or not, whether Form 864 required or not, this is all you have to decide. The 944, even for attorneys, it's a really confusing form. So how to fill it, whether they received or not, which check boxes we have to check. That is really important. But for example, if you miss 944, they are going to reject all completely your petitions. So you will get it back in your hand only after 45 days or 50 days. Sometimes it's going to take 2 months. Then only you'll know that what is the deficiency. So that at this time, because of the time crunch, I will not ask you to take a risk, but better you go with your attorney or, so whatever, whoever knows the current process.
All right, thank you. The next question is, this month, if I downgrade, I will be eligible for a 485. So let's say I do a concurrent filing of 140 and 485, and then my EB2 140 becomes current next month. What do I do?
So in such cases, that's what there is a process called interfiling. Interfiling is nothing. We are you already filed your I-485. While your 485 is in process, if you are eligible by using a higher priority approval notice, I-140 approval, you can send a request to USCIS to process your I-485 by using the new whatever that EB2 approval notice or EB1 or whatever. So then they are going to process your 485 based on the new document available to them. So that process called interfiling.
Thank you. Recently, we have been seeing even for the employee-based category, they doing interviews, calling for interviews. Will the downgrade trigger more interviews?
So the employment-based categories, it's not like because they are downgrading, they are going to get interviews, but randomly, in fact, so it is not even random. I have seen that almost every case they call for interview. So, but in my opinion, if there are too many cases, maybe they are going to randomly call, but at this time they are inviting everybody for interview.
Okay. I know I asked this before and you already answered. Because there's like more than 12, 13 people with similar questions, I'll just ask for a clarification. They're asking, is there any good calculation? 2 months, if it's not still current, can we still be prepared by downgrading? Is there any calculation? 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, if the date, let's say it's May of 2015, should they downgrade and keep the application ready is what they're asking. Like at least a lot of people asking for what is a good time window. So I put that question again, even though you answered it, if you have or can shed a clarification on that.
Yeah, again, so we cannot predict anything. So you have to see your own situation and plan it. Again, it's become luck only, right? So we were waiting for last 10 years. Now we got this opportunity. So I don't know whether it is going to stay further or not. So because the number of applications they are going to file next month, that also is going to impact the numbers.
Yes. So I kind of not asking individual questions. A lot of people kind of threw in the same question with different dates. So it's more a generic thing, as in whether to move or not, and what should be a good date for you to consider downgrade. As Rajguru sir said, it's really, no one really knows what's going to happen. So there is up to your judgment finally. So I'm just clubbing that answer for all the
Husband sent a little while before, maybe you can wait for a November bulletin. Then you can see that whether it is going to stay there for next month at least and what dates they are moving or whatever. Then you will have little better idea.
Yeah. The other question is, we have a couple of people asking, in the past, they have already applied for a 485, but the dates moved back. Now they are still in between the final action date and the filing date. Do they have to do anything?
I think in that case, I don't think they have to do something at this time. Because even EB3 final action dates also, it's not too far from EB2 final action dates. So I don't think, I don't recommend them to downgrade to EB3 and interfile it. Because of the number of EB3 filings, definitely it is going backwards. So, so that maybe they can stick with EB2.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the other question is, right now they are eligible for concurrent filing, and they do a concurrent filing, and then the dates move back. Then all that they do is end up with an EID.
Yes.
Is at least if the dates go back, will they get EID, or will they have to wait for the 140 to be approved before they start issuing EID?
No, they will get EAD. So EAD is just based on the I-485 pending status. So whether the I-140 pending or approved, still they can get EADs.
So the other question, I think so, Ravi, I'm not sure if you're here, but I think so you should consult to a lawyer, attorney. But I will just ask, of course, you did put in your question early. His H1 is pending from last couple of years because he had issues with a previous employer and not with his current employer. So he's asking, what should he be doing? Should he be still using like the downgrade option or not?
Can you repeat once again? I'm missing here.
He's saying my H1B petition is pending status for more than 2 years because of the previous employer, not because of the current employer. can I port from EB2 to EB3 while the H1 itself is pending because of some misconduct or something from the previous employer? His 140, can I even port to the new company or not is the question.
Yeah, it is possible, so that's what, again, non-immigrant status, nothing to do with the I-140 application. So if you can downgrade, file I-140, you can still file it. So, but again, the question is whether you have the minimum requirement on education, experience, and ability to pay. Still, I-140 can be approved. So you have nothing to worry about your current non-immigrant status when filing 140s.
Sure. So I know you kind of answered this earlier as part of a different question. A lot of people have asked if they can file more than one 485, and I know you answered that is that you can basically change the current 485, interject it, and basically update it. But can you shed a little more light, because people have...
Actually, the filing 485 multiple times, it's not required. Even if you file multiple times, it's going to give you a little headache only. So they will put together the both files and they can invite for interview, a lot of things. So normally when you have one I-485, it's not required to file another one. You can always interfile the new I-140s into that.
Sure. The other question people have is their dependents, not the spouse, but the kids, are either 18, 19, or 20, or so basically, so they're asking if they go ahead and apply for a concurrent 485 and they get an EID, everyone in the family gets an EID, and then the dates go back. Do the dependents still have to apply for F1 visa to study, or is the EID still valid as long as they applied before they turned into an age that makes them ineligible for application?
That's what, again, Child Status Protection Act come in picture. So yeah, as long as they file I-485, they will be fine. But always I recommend to have a non-immigrant status also. So maybe they can go and file F1 also, but still they can continue 485.
So I think so. A couple of people are on this thing. I think so. Rajguru already answered that. Without moving to my previous employer, if they have the 140 and 485 approved, can they apply for, 140 approved, can they apply for 485? And I think so you already answered, especially if they have to downgrade, then they have to do the ability to pay. And as long as they can show it, then they should be fine, but it has its own challenges. But any other thing that you want to add, if they are not joining the previous company, but if they go ahead and do a downgrade and 485 concurrently?
So that's what, again, when they are filing 485, if they are filing along with I-140, they no need to submit 485 supplement J. So there is no requirement to get a signature in 485J, but I-140, again, that employer has to file it, so they have to support the petition, the ability to pay, all those. So as long as they have ability to pay, definitely, if they are willing to help, they can do it without joining to that.
Sure. So one of the questions I meant to club earlier, they're asking the interfiling of 485, how late in the process can we actually change it? So let's say they already had fingerprinting, they had an interview call, and then they are waiting after interview, and then the other date becomes current. Can they still change it? At what stage? Is that says that after
Actually,
fingerprinting or after interview?
They can interfile anytime until they get I-485 approval. So even a day before also they can interfile. But normally if your 485 it's about to approve, we don't even consider that option. So, but if it's pending for a long time and no movement or whatever, you can get benefit of other I-140. You can file, interfile at any time while your petition is pending. Even sometimes they call for an interview, but let's say EB3 is not current. That time during interview also we can interfile I-140 with the EB2. So EB2 or whatever the higher category at the time is available, we can interfile it even during interview process.
One of them had asked a question, and they both are on separate H1s, and they both have separate 140s. Both of their 140s is right now, one is in EB3, one is in EB2, and they both are eligible for filing for 485. They don't know which one will move forward faster. Can they apply to I-485 since they have two 140s? I know you answered it, one person can only have one, but they just kind of twisted the question, so I asked it one more time.
Yeah, so in this case, let's say if they are filing based on the husband's I-140 and a wife spouse filing as a derivative. So if a wife's petition become current at one point, still we can interfile I-140 of that girl, and we can request USCIS to process based on that 485. So you don't need to file a separate 485 at that time. All you have to do interfiling and request USCIS to consider spouse's I-140 approval. So typically you no need to do two 485s. Even it was filed by the derivative applicant, and if we have I-140 approval for her, yeah, definitely you can interfile it into the pending applications.
Sure. There's a question for 140 DS 160 application form. It says they're saying that they're only asking, they only have one section to mention your previous experience, but they have a diversified experience going across multiple companies. So if they don't answer it, or if they answer it, how do they answer? And if they don't answer it, will that affect their 140 decision?
Which form you are talking about? DS, you mean?
Yeah, so
visa
I guess the kind of
okay.
Yeah.
So I can get the questioner right, but what they are trying to see in visa application, if they have not provided experience, whether they can give now in I-140, because how it is connected with the DS and 140.
Yeah, they are asking if they gave a different information in the DS form and different in 140. Will USCIS have a way to cross-verify and deny 140 based on that? They
can do. I had one incident like that. It got denied I-140 because the employee has not listed in visa application, and they cross-verified, and in the request for evidence itself, they gave that data. Initially, it was not given. Now you are coming up with the new information, and basically, you know what? They denied that I-140. Then we have to. We did something next petition, and we got it approved, but there is a possibility to cross-verify visa applications by USCIS officers. Now they are all State Department, CBP, and USCIS all interlinked. They have access to their files.
Hari Garu, here a couple more general questions popped up recently. I will just ask those questions by the time you can consolidate. Yeah. So one is like this is you already answered, but I don't know, somehow few people joined little late or somewhat. So I would read that scenario. So first one is like my previous employer has an approved I-140 EB2. Can my previous employer downgrade my application from EB2 to EB3 and apply along with the I-485? And then would there be a new labor paperwork that is needed during downgrade? By when should I apply? Is it like 1 week or 2 weeks, the date duration? Along with this, the other question people had is, what are all the documentation are required to submit, like date-wise, like should we submit on 1st of October, or is it okay if we submit any time in October? So that kind of question. So if you can generalize and give an answer, Guruji, it will be helpful.
Now I will talk about that October one, when we have to apply it, because there is a small change on October 2nd. October 2nd, the new forms kicking in, so new fees kicking in. But October 1st, it is a old form, old fees. So even I had several questions yesterday. Even my clients were asking whether we can file on October 1st to save some money on the filing fee or whatever. So I would suggest not to take that risk at this time. So because most of the time we have seen, because all the I-485 applications, it's going to a lockbox. Let's say you are filing through USPS or FedEx, it may be picked up by USCIS the following day. If they, instead of October 1st, if they are picking up October 2nd, all the efforts is it's gone. So, and another thing, if they are rejecting your application on that reason, you are going to get your application only after, I can say that after 2 months or 3 months. So because there's a lot of delay in logbox returns also. So you will not have another opportunity to submit. You may not have. So just because of the money, I don't recommend to file on October 1st. Better, you put more money or whatever, so I see that there's a difference of almost $1,000 for EAD and $765 for per applicant. Better to file after October 2nd. So based on the current bulletin, you can file from October 2nd to October 31st. So this is one thing. The next, the first part of the question, can you repeat once again?
The same question, Rajguruji, for the same
Yes.
question itself, they have attached, like, is there any difference if someone files on October 2nd or October 30th? Will there be anything different for them? Like,
there is no difference on filing procedure or advantage because they submitted on October 2nd. They are going to get green card first, kind of. So whether they are filing October 2nd or October 30th, it's both are same. But only thing, again, if you are trying to deliver an application on October 31st and November 1st, it is not current, you should not take risk, at least, try to deliver it, 5-6 days before.
Yeah, please continue with the other question answer.
You can repeat that first part of your question. So
Sure. The first question, what they were asking is like, previous employer had a I-140, approved I-140, and previous employer is willing to downgrade from EB2 to EB3 now, and then apply for the I-485.
right.
How does that work? And then is that a possibility? And also, would there be a new label paperwork that is needed during downgrade? And by when you should apply? That you already answered. The first three parts
Yes,
of that question.
In the previous employer, if they have an EB2 approval previously, to downgrade, they can use the same labor certificate, same firm approval to downgrade to EB3. And again, the question is, employer has a willingness to do it. That means they are offering permanent employment to you, and they can use that perm application to file your I-140. So since you are calling as a previous employer, definitely you are not working for them at this time. The main question again, it is ability to pay. So as long as the employer has can establish ability to pay means not just for your application, for all the applications they have submitted and no green card received yet. So even let's say like you, if they have 4 or 5 people they are helping, so every case they have to show ability to pay. So let's say they have ability to pay for your application, but not for other applications, they can deny your petition also. So this is all you have to see, that how many petition employer filing, how much net assets they have, how much net income they have, whether they can support or not. And again, it is not just for your application, the whole pending I-140 is approved and not green card received. All the petitions, they have to put together in a Excel sheet. They have to give a calculation. This is how we have a ability to pay, kind of. So you have to really careful whether they have ability to pay or not. So most of the time you have no access to that data. So employer has to be a little honest in that. Then, if they are saying that we don't have ability to pay, don't pressurize them to file it.
Yeah. Hari Garu, please continue with the other questions, sir.
Yeah, I have sent around 30 more questions that were posted in the last 1 hour, I guess. So, Hari, you can consolidate them as well. I sent to all of you.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm
sure.
seeing that, Srini Garu. Meanwhile, I'll also take a look at it. Thanks.
So the other question is, let's say so they have a H1, they have a 140 right now, and they are doing a downgrade and applying concurrently. And for some reason, either the 140 or the 485 is denied. Does that affect their current H1B?
It don't impact the current H1B. So current H1B, until that validity period, they can continue. So when they are going to file extension or change of employer amendment petition, again, they have to establish whether they are eligible for that H1B, that's beyond 6 years or whatever.
Okay.
So at that time, if they have another I-140 approval, whatever, so still they can get that extension.
Okay. So a couple of questions. One person had a little bit longer, so I'm going to club it and make that. So they're saying they used to have an EB3, and then they went to EB2, and can they now come back to EB3? Is their question. But I think so if they already had an EB3 and then they went for EB2, that means they already have both EB2 and EB3. But can you please shed more light on it? They are asking, how many times can we switch between EB2 and EB3?
There is no limitation. You can switch EB2, EB3, any applications. But again, all the immigration petitions, we have to establish the bona fide intention of the employer. So the officers, they can question during interview, whatever. So what you are doing, here and there, or really there is a position or not. So I would suggest avoid too many, whatever that conversions. So maybe 1 or 2, it would be fine. So if you're having 7, 8 by the same employer, so definitely it's going to be a little issue during interviews.
So someone has, let's say I filed for an adjustment of status. They're technically allowed to stay in the country till they get a decision. Can they basically at that point join as a full-time student without any other visa?
So it is again, there is dual intent visas, kind of whether you have an immigrant intent or not. So if you have an immigrant intent, some of the visa status cannot be approved. So if you want to be an immigrant, you want to be a permanent resident, so only the 2 visas allowed H and L statuses, not F1 or B1 or whatever. Once you file your I-140 petition, you have an intention to become a permanent resident, so that you are not eligible to get F1 visa. So when you are filing the change of status to F1 or whatever, you have to fill form I-513. There is a question whether you filed any I-140 petition, whether you have filed 485. Once you answer that, there are great chances they can deny your F1 status. So it is not like whether you can continue your green card or not in the other status, but other status cannot be approved.
All right. And one of the new questions had a little bit different. So I'm going to ask, what are the circumstances in which they will not port your priority date when you downgrade? Is there a chance that they might not port? And is there any known circumstances that in those cases they would not basically give you the old priority date?
So if you have valid I-140 approval from previous petition, they can port it. But if that I-140 got revoked for some, again, in the fraud misrepresentation reason. So let's say after I-140 approval, they found that you provided a fake experience letter, that education is not good. That reason, if they are revoking that approval for fraud and misrepresentation, that date cannot be ported. So all other reasons like, the employer withdrawn kind of things and all, you can still port it.
The other question is on the documentation for 485. They are saying that one of them does not have, or few of them say they do not have a birth certificate. When they are asking in India for a non-availability certificate, they are refusing to give. What do we do in such a situation?
Yeah, the non-availability certificate, birth and death register, they cannot refuse. They must give. So they have to confirm that whether there is a, when somebody applying for a birth certificate, they have to mention that it is available or it is not registered. It's not available. They must give non-availability certificate. But I know in India, so maybe some people, they are expecting something, so they are not giving. So you have to find a way to get it. Yeah.
Okay, great. On this answer, he didn't say what is the way. All right. Yeah. So we are on top of the hour. I kind of consolidated most of the questions. We took some questions from the general this thing. So Srini Garu, so
yeah.
Do we continue?
Oh, Hari Garu,
yeah.
Hari Garu, there was one more the generalized question came up, which is like, I'll just ask this question and then we can go to the next step. So this is the scenario where both the spouses like applied in EB2. They are in 2015, and one of them is example. One is in July, one is in August. So both are in EB2. So do you recommend or do you suggest one of them to downgrade to EB3? Will that have any advantage for them in future? So this also repeated question. So I just started asking.
Yeah, if converting to EB3 for one of the application, giving an option for them to file 485, they can consider at least one of them to downgrade, whoever has better advantage, a priority date when converting.
Yeah, one is a full-time employee in the employment also. One is a full-time, one is a contractor. That kind of scenario.
Okay. That doesn't matter as long as they feel that one petition can be converted, whatever they can choose it. So based on that, they can file I-485. Then later, the other applicant, like we discussed previously, spouses EB2, it is valid until at one point of time, she is going to take advantage of that EB2 petition. You can interfile that time. So converting one of them to EB3, yes, you can. I can recommend that.
Thank you, Hari Garu, Srini Garu. Yeah, please.
Yeah, a lot of questions are kind of repeated. Like some, if I'm with employee B, can they do it? Can I go back to A? Or if I already have an approved from A and B and now I'm with C, why do I have to redo everything from scratch and other things? But I guess that is unfortunately the situation. That's how the system is currently. It's not based on you, but the initial stages is based on the company. So every time you change the company, you do have to do it. But Rajguru sir, anything you have to add there on the comments if they are with company C or D right now, and they already went through this process a couple of times with company A and B, and they have all the approved documents from there, but now they are with either a C or a D.
Yeah, that is true. Even we discussed yesterday, because initially they were in company A and they got I-140 approval, and they are porting that date to new employers I-140. So again, now we have priority date only May 2015 to file whatever the EB3 cases. So if your employer D filed your perm application only in 2018, so we have a lot of challenge when we are downgrading to EB3 and concurrently filing I-485. So most of the time in Lockbox, the officer, they are going to look at only the labor certificate included with that I-140 petition to see the priority date, not that porting dates. So if your employer D going to file EB3 downgrade, so he's going to use that labor certificate filed in 2018 So if you are filing an I-140 EB3 downgrade with the 2018 labor certificate and concurrently 485 petition, so you most probably they are going to reject that petition stating that your dates are not current, because they are going to look at only that labor certificate. They are not going to look at whether your dates can be ported or not. So even if you put detailed letter, I'm eligible for previous priority date, whatever, that whoever numbering, they are not going to care about it, because porting is approved by adjudicating officer when they are approving the I-140. So such cases, that's what yesterday also I recommended, first file EB3 petition, get it approved, then go for 485. So there are great chance that 485 files will be rejected if you are filing EB3 with a labor certificate approved after 2015 that day. So these kind of cases and all, you have to carefully work with the attorney, and there are even whatever the documents you put, there is a great chance it can be rejected stating that priority date is not current. This is the only challenge I'm looking at when you are applying EB3 by employer D or C or whatever, who ported that old date to the EB2 petition.
Okay. So one of the other things is, how do we know that a firm is eligible for a downgrade?
So that generally, if we are talking about all EB2 petitions, eligible EB2 firms eligible for EB3. So if you already have an EB2 approval, definitely you can file EB3. So that's how that's that thumb rule, but we have to see that minimum educational requirement, what it is, and the minimum experience requirement. Based on that only, we are going to choose the employment based categories. So only thing I can recommend not to take a chance if you already have an approval with a 3-year degree under EB2. So or whatever that you have only 3-year degree, and somehow you got approval 5 years back, 10 years back, but now the scene got changed. If your labor certificate says that you need a bachelor degree and you have only 3-year degree from India, such kind of cases and all, I would say that avoid doing anything at this time. So because now USC is going to look for 4-year degree if minimum requirement is a bachelor degree. They can deny your new petition. Also, they can revoke your old petition. So such cases and all, you have to be a little careful. Not only in this degree, sometimes we have not only 3-year degree. In some cases, we have 3-year degree plus 2-year degree. So some people, they evaluated as a master's degree that time in 2010, 9, 10, 11, 12 and all. But now USC is equating those 3-year degree and a 2-year degree only to a bachelor degree. So some people, they got approval with the master's degrees educational evaluation. So such cases and all, you have to see case by case and whether it is wise to file another I-140 based on that or not.
Okay. There's one more question is, they already had a labor and 140 from a previous company A. Now they are with company B who got the perm done. Can they file an EB2 and EB3 140 both at the same time with company B? So that way they'll have both ready.
So you mean they are going to file 2 perm application and file EB2 and EB3?
No, they said they already did 1 perm application and it's already certified with company B. Can they do the 140 in both EB2 and EB3?
Yeah, so that anyhow, the first petition, they are going to, because they didn't mention that when it was approved. So probably since they are asking whether they can file EB2, EB3, recently the perm got certified. If it's recently certified, there is a way to do both 2 petitions by using that electronic whatever that certification. If it is not expired, still it is valid, there is a way to do 2 applications.
So, Hari, a quick question. Did we cover all the recent 30 questions that I posted?
Yeah, so I went through them. They're all kind of individually have different dates, but kind of same questions. So I kind of consolidated them and asked them, did not really go question by question because most of them have the same thing. Can you tell us the process to switch from EB2 to EB3, or can you tell me what's the risk and different scenarios of date? So they are pretty much consolidated, and as so the one thing that keeps popping up and again is, and maybe if Rajguru sir can shed a little more light, so we said there are some complications when doing the downgrade and 485. People are asking, is there any that you can highlight complications or risk factors or challenges in this process that they should be aware of and based on which they should take a decision?
Yeah, I don't see any complication except we were discussing the previous question on, let's say you already have an approval, and because you are filing another approval, if there is some deficiency in the labor certificate on your education, experience, ability to pay, they can revoke previous I-140 also. So that is the only complication I see that. So this all your individual petitions you have to discuss with people who has knowledge in that. So like attorneys and all.
So there is one question which probably we addressed or it came back again and again. Unfortunately, this will help many. So I just ask one more time, Rajguruji. So whoever it is asking, please pay attention to this answer. That way you get your answer. So I'll read it for you, sir. My I-140 is with employer A, and EB2 priority date is end of 2014. I moved to employer B 8 months back. If I go back to previous employer, which is A, is there any delay or additional steps involved to downgrade to EB3 and file I-485?
Okay, so he's claiming 8 months. So let's say if it's a 1 month, 2 month and all, he probably not having that payroll, so only for 1 or 2 months. So, but 8 months means definitely no, he got only 50% salary for in this month, or not even 50%. So again, the question is ability to pay. So since there is a break, whether the employer can prove ability to pay. So another thing, you have to see that like you, how many employees going back to them and filing EB3 downgrade. So let's say 6-7 people going there. So some employers even file more than 10. So if there is no payroll for these people 6 months, 10 months and all, so employer must show ability to pay from their income, tax return, whatever, to cover those ability to pay salaries and all. So that is the only risk I see that in that gap.
Thank you. Hari Garu, you can.
Yeah, I think so we covered most of the questions. I know people are asking, they're saying that in the list, they put in the question and we didn't read out their question. So we haven't read out any questions exactly, but we kind of consolidated all the questions together and kind of put it together. So if you still have questions, we will try to see. I'm not sure, I need to check with Srinjit, but if I'm not sure, when you put your question, you put an email ID or something just to send out. But one thing, there's too many questions coming in, right? There's only so much we could spend volunteer hours answering all the questions. We will try our best to answer, so continue posting. But if you have any specific questions, I think so you should get an appointment with Rajguru sir. He has more than generously spent time with us answering most of the questions. So
yeah, I can explain a few action items. So okay, so if you already put your question, but I think the only process is what we are looking at is only the questions which were posted at the link that we have given, which is letustalkit.com/help. So if you go to the link letustalkit.com/help, that is where you are posting all the questions, and all the 70 questions that we summarized now, it is from that link. So you can continue posting there. And now, If you think you posted, that question and you think it is not fully addressed, you can type your name in the chat. We'll try to see if at all, we can answer that question. You can just type your name. If you only, this is for the people who already posted in the questions there. We will try to see, just if it takes another 5 minutes, we can cover. So, okay, I see one name, Divi. Okay, if there's anything with the Divi or Alvin, Manisha, we will check, okay? But we have taken the snapshot as of, I think, half an hour ago or so. So, yeah, okay, so that is one question. Okay, then another one is, if your scenario is not generic, and if it really requires personal attention, it is very important that attorney takes, pays enough attention and then, addresses, because it is very crucial, just like a doctor, as I told earlier, attorney and doctors, we should be very careful. So for those, you can feel free to take, an optional paid consultation, which is, at a heavily discounted price for Letterstock at $150 per case, where, it will be refunded if you proceed, further after your clarifications are done, to be taken up by IMLAS. So that $150 also will be refunded, adjusted against the standard fees that any attorney charges. So that is the best we could do to help the community. Okay, so now I'm looking at quickly. Yeah.
So one question I'll just, one question. So we kind of asked the same question earlier. Is there any requirements on what firms can be downgraded and what firms cannot be downgraded? And we already had an answer, but this is kind of more specific. I put in more generic, but if the firm doesn't state bachelor's and it says that master's is mandatory, can they still downgrade it?
Yeah, it can be still can be downgraded. So because the minimum requirement to be an EB3, either it is 2 years experience or a bachelor degree, whatever, So there are two categories even in EB3. There is something called skilled worker, and another one is a professional. So anything above that requirement, it is eligible for EB3. So master's degree requirement also, it is eligible for EB3.
Okay, so we got some names, who already posted the questions. They think that they haven't, got the answers. Ketan Patel, I could not find the name. Divi, I could find it. It says if the job requirements in the EB2 perm only say master's degree but not a bachelor's degree, can that perm still be used for downgrade to EB3? So Hari, did we answer?
That's what,
yes.
Yeah, that's what we asked right now.
Oh, so I'm so sorry. Oh my God. I think, okay. So now let's, I'm searching for Manisha. Okay. What
so
if
Manisha's question we already asked is so we didn't put it. So what if the previous employer is not willing to downgrade or not willing to basically do it, or the current employer, if is not willing to downgrade, what can we do? We kind of put it generic. What if the employer doesn't comply with the downgrade? So we put it that way. And Rajguru sir already answered it. There isn't anything that we can really force anyone to do it. It's the employer. If they want to, they could just simply say it's a company policy. We will not do it, or they don't want to do it. Because typically you can't offer them the money for the 140 because it's the employer's responsibility. So if they don't want to do it, I don't think there is a way to force it. But Rajguru sir, you already answered that. In case you want to add something, because that question came back again.
Yeah, nothing else in that. If they are not willing to do, you cannot do anything, because these are employer-based petitions. So the employer has to file I-140, employer has to sign 485J supplement form. So you can't do anything on that.
Okay, so now Hari, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the question number to you. So only if it is not answered, then you can ask quickly. So Vijay, that is question number 59, Hari. You can refer to question number 59.
Yeah,
and then
upload one for them.
Yeah, and then 67. Okay, I'm typing the question numbers here in the chat window to make it easy for you. Okay, so that means you can go to that question number directly and see if it is not addressed already, you can address here. So we just want to use some kind. intelligent approach here.
Yeah. So question number 59, kind of, they have the date in 2014. What if they downgrade and then everyone downgrades and then EB2 dates move? And we kind of answered this question without putting dates because there were 14, 15 people with similar situation. So again, I think so Rajguru sir already answered that by saying we cannot predict what's going to really happen. We know what it is going to accept today. So it is you who have to make the final decision. But what would help if you downgrade right now is at least you will get an EID in case you want the EID. If not, there is nothing that we can say. Even if your date is like, I know few people are saying 3 years, 4 years, but even if it's 1 month away from the actual final action date and you downgrade it and do all these things, we don't know what's going to happen in the November. Should we do it or what's going to happen? So it's hard to predict this. We can go based on past, but this is no indication of the past because this massive movement in the past is for a small spillover, there were a couple of years, but this huge movement, we never know. So I think so it's already answered 59, but Rajguru sir, in case, so they're asking the same thing. They're
Same, I
mid
second
2014.
you. So yeah, nothing to add in that, as we already discussed and also you reiterated now. So nothing to add in that.
Yeah, 42, Arun Kumar Raja, question number 42.
Yeah, so this one was kind of asked very specifically that they already went through the process, everything, and they had an interview and they're waiting on the final result, and then EB2 dates moved. Should they interfile or not? This was one of the, I think, the 7th or 8th question we put forward. And is there a good time when we should interfile? And Rajguru sir already answered at no point is it a good time or a bad time. You are allowed to interfile at any time of the process of the 485. If it makes sense, you can interfile it. If it's already there, they have already adjudicated it. They will, even though you interfile it 1 day, 2 days before you getting the approval, they might still use the old one. But if you have an opportunity, if you think it makes more sense, the dates are much closer, you are allowed to interfile any number of times at any stage. So that was the answer that came in for 42.
Yeah,
Right, and
that's
then
yes.
I'm going to just
66,
repeat the answer
Narayan.
that Rajguru sir gave.
Yeah.
But in case Rajguru sir, you have to add something, please do.
That is right. You know, they can interfile based on their situation. If interfiling is going to benefit them at any point until your petition is pending, you can do it.
Yeah, 66, Narayana.
Yeah, so this was kind of answered. The first part is, what is the total duration that we are looking for the downgrade? At this point, we already said we don't really know what's going to happen with the dates, how many visa numbers are going to come over as spillover. So it's hard to give a date for this particular thing. All that we would know is within the first 90 days, at least pre-COVID, you would get an EID. But then when would your final action date be current, and when the application will be adjudicated, especially for 485 where dates keep going back and forth, it's hard to basically give a timeline for this. And the other part was asked as a part of, answered as part of a combined question from other thing is, while this is being pending, if the EB2 dates become current, can I reapply for 485? And then we said that there is no multiple 485s, but you can basically send out a letter, interfile, and then you could request them to switch over to the new 140. There is no multiple 485s for 66. So we kind of split that question into two, but both parts were answered before.
Right, okay. So next, Mayank, 60. Mayank, number 60.
Yeah. So they are asking, they have a date of April 2015. Should they be downgrading it now and doing it, or should they be April 2015 EV2? Should they downgrade, or what should they do?
April 2015, they have EB2, right?
Yes.
So again, they have to decide whether it is wise to downgrade now or not. April 2015, if they are downgrading, they can file 485 now, right? So later they can see that if it dates going backwards for EB3, then again they have to see whether they can interfile with an EB2 petition or whatever. So if filing 485 now, it is going to give some advantage to them, let them downgrade it.
Okay. Actually, I know there are more questions that still, we are being asked. Actually, there are, I think around 40 more questions were added actually to the database. But what we will do is, I think we will follow the same approach to really help as much as we can. So Rajguru, when do you think we can do the next information webinar?
We can do that. So we can, because this is maybe you can start collecting questionnaires still. Again, we can have today Friday, right? Maybe we can have again on Monday.
Okay,
or
so maybe
if everybody available, Sunday I cannot do because I'm traveling. On Monday morning we can do.
Oh, okay. So okay, then we'll announce the time.
Correct, yeah.
Monday. But yeah, everybody just try to use that help desk portal so that we'll try to organize and get it. But as told again, you can always go for the personal, attorney consulting, as we told, which is very discounted price of $150 per case, which will be again refunded if at all you are going ahead with IMLAS for the processing of that case. So
I would say rather refunding, just say it will be credited if there is the full application is being taken. It will be credited towards that
adjusted. Yes, yeah, it will be adjusted against that. And so you only thing is, in order to make sure you're receiving the communication, please be in one of those WhatsApp groups. Like you can just go to the website letustalkit.com and click on join WhatsApp group or join Telegram group, whichever you use. And also, if you want the updates by emails, you can also click a button there. In the main page, everything is there. So, and also if any of you want to volunteer, not just for the immigration here, but we are trying to help in the community in so many other ways, in jobs and, careers, mentoring and startups, and then even, emergency healthcare, traveling from here to India. And also we are trying to, do a lot of community activities as well. If any of you are interested in the volunteering, always feel free to get in touch with us. We'll definitely appreciate that. So thank again. We thank again Rajguru, and thank you Murahari Devapatni Garu for the coordination, and Dushyant and all the team, One Michigan family and everybody who is involved. Thank you again, and then we'll again meet on Monday. We'll post the time pretty soon there.
Thank you, Sydney. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all.